we are going right to the speeches, to the most exciting part of the day, I guess. Gary is absolutely looking forward to that. Please let's give him an applause, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll start by welcoming you all to celebrate Penny and Daniel's wedding. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today, especially those of you who knew that I'd be saying a few words. I'm quite touched that you'd still decided to come. At least I didn't have to worry about being witty and entertaining. That's the best man's job. No pressure. Right, today is of course a celebration, not just of the love that has united Penny and Daniel over the past 17 years or so, but also of the families that have created, moulded and influenced the lives of these two very special people. My wife, Beth, and I would like to extend a very warm welcome to Sheila and Richard and their family, and to the relatives and friends of both families. Thank you all for joining us in celebrating this very special day. It is good to see so many friends and family here to celebrate their marriage. After all, I am sure most of us, including me, never thought this day would ever arrive. So thank you all for coming, and thanks to everyone who has given their time and effort into helping to make this day such a lovely occasion. Let us think of those that can't be here for this day. Penny's mother, Pippa, her grandfather, Dadad, her granny, her grandma and granddad, my parents amongst them. I'm sure they will all be looking down on this lovely day with a smile on their faces, and I'm sure they arranged for the blue sky and sunshine earlier. Okay. Sorry, I've got to speak up a bit. Looking back, I can still remember the day when Penny came into the world at Louise Margaret Hospital in Aldershot. It was a beautiful sunrise, looking out of the delivery room window, not a cloud in the sky. Pity about the smell of burning toast that I'd let overcook in the corridor outside the room. Since then, there have been many other days to remember, happy times and sad times dealing with Penny's mother's illness. There are many memories to recall. Amongst the many are the time when Penny and Annabelle built wigwams out of brushwood in the New Forest with their dadad. There was the time when the refrigerator caught fire in our caravan, and the rapid exit Penny made out of the side window of the caravan, clutching her teddy bear, I seem to recall.
Most important person.
Be warned, Daniel, if you are ever unfortunate to be involved in a fire, then Penny's teddy bear will be the first thing she will save. Yeah. But there again, you will probably save your iPad. There was also the time when we had been to see their dadad and granny, and Penny had left her teddy bear behind. Penny made such a fuss about it that I broke the speed limit driving back to retrieve it. One of the many happy times was when we were caravanning on a campsite in West Wales, calling both Penny and Annabelle in for bedtime. Only Penny had other ideas and set off on her bike around the campsite roads, pedalling furiously, whilst I ran after her, huffing and puffing, trying to catch her to put her to bed. Or the time when Penny phoned me during an afternoon, asking to come and see me that evening. Beth and I were very perplexed as to why she phoned. She arrived later looking very sheepish. While on holiday in New Zealand after university, she had done a parachute jump and then compounded it by doing a bungee jump, in spite of me saying during their childhood that I did not want my daughters doing parachute or bungee jump. Just goes to show the limitation of a father's wishes. My proudest moments, well, there are so many. Being the first student at Ash Manor School to achieve 9 A stars in the GCSE exams. Achieving her marksman badge in the Air Training Corps. Yeah. High five, Penny, high five. Hey, sorry. I'm small.
Don't worry, erase that.
Right, and completing the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme and receiving her gold award from Prince Philip at St James's Palace. When Penny was in her early teens, we had a family day out to Oxford. While standing in Broad Street, Penny turned to me and said that she wanted to come to Oxford University when she was older. Well, she achieved that in style. She left university with a first-class honours degree in mechanical engineering. She then eventually followed both her grandfathers and myself into the building industry and gained her professional qualification as a structural engineer and is now working as a senior engineer. There are many more memories. There are many more memories, but we must move on, otherwise I shall be on my feet, which are aching like anything, all night long, and bore you all silly. As I look at my beloved darling daughter Penny, I can't help but reflect on all the years I was lucky enough to watch her grow and become the beautiful woman she is today. She captured my heart on the day she was born, and I became more in awe of her as the years passed by. She's my little girl, and no matter what her age, she'll always be those things to me. But today, as we celebrate her marriage to Daniel, a wonderful man, how do I know he is special? Well, some years ago, when Penny was at university, her grandparents were housebound for a short time, and Daniel went over to their house in Farnham and did their shopping for them. A very kind and considerate thing to do, and very special. I'm filled with pride, and I'm confident that she and Daniel are continuing on a wonderful journey filled with love and happiness that can only come as man and wife. May the two of you always treat each other with love, compassion and kindness. Ladies and gentlemen, I now ask you to please raise your glasses and join me today in congratulating the bride and groom and wishing them all the best for a long and happy life together. To Penny and Daniel, bride and groom.
Thanks, Daniel. Bride and groom.
Sorry about the glasses. Right, well that's my bit done. I now hand you over to the groom.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. My speech is going to be somewhat less polished than Gary's.
I've been practicing.
But I'm going to start with the thank yous. And given how many people have been involved in preparing and assisting with our wedding over the last couple of months, this might take a little while, so bear with me. Gary, I think I have to thank you first for your kind words and all the assistance in making this place look so wonderful, and running around all week and yesterday, helping just out in general, and also allowing me to marry your beautiful, wonderful daughter.
Well, I must admit, it's the first time you've ever phoned me in the office, and I was really taken aback when you asked.
Yeah, I did do it the wrong way round, though, didn't I? I should have asked first.
I was so overwhelmed and so pleased and so glad for you. That's great.
Secondly, we have to thank a massive debt of gratitude to Beth here, who Penny's stepmother, who all the flowers on the table that you can see, Beth did the bunting out there. Beth did the pew ends in the church. Beth did those as well, and the trees out in the courtyard. Beth did those as well. So I think without Beth, this place would be a lot duller, and our wedding would have been a lot emptier. Small token of our gratitude, Beth.
And now you've got to put them in a waste.
Yes. So I'm sure you're not quite bored of flowers yet, but at least you don't have to put those ones together.
And they're in water.
And they're in water.
Yeah, cool. Next up, I have to thank my mum and dad, not just for the massive assistance that they've given us during the planning of the wedding and being here today, but just for the sheer love and support they've shown me over the years. I truly couldn't wish for any better parents anywhere. I'm sure I wouldn't have achieved half of what I've done without the love and support of mum and dad. So I just want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank you both from the bottom of my heart, and we've got some presents for you as well, actually, but I'm not sure if we're going to be able to find.
Then if I sit here, I'll do it.
And you can find all the presents.
Maybe not.
I also have to thank Beth's sister Sheila, who made the, well, you can't see it now, but the wonderful cake that we've started cutting up already as a wedding present to us. So, Sheila, where are you actually? She's over there. You are. So, stick your hand up, and everyone, when you have some later, go thank Sheila afterwards.
That's not bad. We won't do all these now.
Oh, is that your dad's? Yes. It's yours, Gary. Thank you. Sorry, we forgot your present. So I told you it was going to be less polished.
Yeah, it's fine. Carry on. We're all friends and family. Doesn't really matter.
At this stage, I'd also like to thank some of our guests. Well, all of you for being here, but some have made the extra effort and gone the extra mile to get here. So we've got Barry, that's come all the way in from LA. So thank you for family at home. And we've got little Nikki over there that's flown all the way in from Doha in Qatar via a 10-hour delay yesterday. And we've also got Rohit's lovely wife Sheba that we haven't seen for ages, but has flown in from India. So slightly closer, but no less important, we have my Aunt Penny and her partner Bruce that have come all the way down from the Isle of Man and managed to stop here on their holiday. And I'd also like to mention Kitty, our friend that moved to Sydney earlier this year for a year, and I still don't think has forgiven me for proposing to Penny in the year that she did that. So, Kitty, we're thinking of you, and sorry. So, and also Steve and Zoe are other friends who have just happened to book their holiday in Cyprus for this time of year, and we couldn't persuade them not to go. So, that brings me on nicely to my ushers, who I actually feel I should apologise to, because they were expecting to turn up today and stand around in their suits looking pretty and not doing much except having a drink, I think. But instead we've had them being bin men, DJs, waiters, glass cleaners. So to all of you, thank you very much. The hard work's over. You can get drunk now. Which leads me on nicely, and I think it would be traditional and probably prudence, they don't beat me up later, to mention the bridesmaids, Penny's sister Annabelle and her best friend Amy, who look beautiful today, I'm sure you'll all agree. I know they've been a great support to Penny over the last couple of months during the wedding preparations, and I know they also organised a fantastic hen do in Bristol that I think everyone that was in attendance enjoyed. So yeah.
See you, Bristol.
See you. So at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I'd please like to charge your glasses and toast the bridesmaids. The bridesmaids.
Can we still do it?
Of course you can. You need to.
Yes. Drink each other.
So we also have to thank Nadja and Navas, who have done our wonderful sweetie table, which I saw all of you starting to tuck into just before. So we're very appreciative of the hard work and effort that's gone into that. So thank you guys. It's very good. I'm not going to do all the thank yous right now. We'll catch up with some other people later. We've got to thank Ingrid and Stacey for their wonderful readings at the church, which really set the tone nicely, I think. So thank you very much for those. And we also have Jill to thank, who did the wonderful candles on and tea lights on the tables out in the courtyard, in the jam jars, which are also very pretty. So we've got a whole stack of things down here for people, so we'll make sure we catch up with you all later. Otherwise, we will be here all night and you will be very bored. So if I may, I'd like to take a few words to talk about my lovely wife, who I'm sure you'll all agree looks absolutely stunning today. As Gary mentioned, we met, probably over 18 years ago, but we've been going out for 17 of those. So we met at secondary school and started going out not long after, and that's quite scary considering, Where's Abby? Ellie, even. So we're actually about as old as Ellie over there, which is very, very scary. Yeah.
Younger.
No, yeah.
Abby.
Us as a couple, we're as old.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm not that bad, surely. Lost my track now. So the things that attracted me to Penny is where I was going next. Back then, were pretty much all of the same things that still attract me to her to this day. Her intelligence, as Gary has mentioned, she's academically quite astute and has breezed through school, college and Oxford University. Her honesty, her sensitivity, her selflessness, her unbeatable work ethic, her devotion to the things and people that truly matter to her, and a sheer point-blank refusal to be beaten by any problem that's ever stuck in front of her, which can be quite frustrating at times, but especially when I'm the problem. Also, one that I didn't find out back then, but not at age 14 anyway, but she's also a fantastically funny drunk. I'm sure many of you will testify to just how much fun drunk Penny is to be around.
Will we see her tonight?
Yes.
Don't know.
I can't possibly do justice to the last 17 and a half years in this speech, so I'm not going to try. Just need to say that I've had the best experiences of my life with you, Penny, and I honestly don't think I would have travelled so widely or experienced so much if it hadn't been for being with you. And to be honest, I don't think I would have wanted to either without you by my side. Your drive and enthusiasm for all things new and different is amazing, and it never ceases to stop amazing me. And some people have said to me, why get married after all this time? And well, the simple answer for that is, it was always part of the plan. And you've got to be sure about these things. But it did just feel right. And I think that's the thing out of that whole 17 and a half years that I can take from this, is that it's all just been so right, really. So that's my answer to anyone that wants to ask that question again. So, Penny, I love you. Thank you for marrying me. Thank you for being my wife. All that remains for me to say is thank you all for coming, and I'm now going to hand you over to my best man, Adam Hickey. Something to bear in mind here, myself and Adam and a couple of the other guys in this room have been friends since we were about 4 or 5 years old at play school, so we know pretty much everything about each other, so please just bear that in mind. It's been a long time, he's got a lot of material. After Adam did me the honour of making me his best man at his wedding to the lovely Stacey a couple of years back, I don't think I embarrassed him too much, but as a preemptive strike, I will just say, because it was too good just to tell the audience one. If he embarrasses me too much, ask him about one of the first times he stayed over at Stacey's parents' house. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Hickey.
I want to make sure I haven't lost the speech like I lost the rings. Well, if the first speech was polished and the second one was roughly hewn, mine is in its raw state, I'm afraid. So let's get these pages in order to start off with. All right. I'd just like to start by laying down a couple of rules. Firstly, no heckling, please. And that applies to the aunties. And secondly, if you do have a mobile phone, please leave it switched on. Keep yourself distracted and entertained. If you keep your spirits high and your expectations low, we'll all get through this together. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Adam, as Daniel has obviously already pointed out, and I am the best man. I've known Daniel for 27 years, and not surprisingly, I'm still waiting for Daniel to take our relationship to the next level.
That's what we said in Manchester, clean up my sit.
We'll get to that. There are actually two other people here that have known and been friends with Daniel since play school, Chris and Blair, Daniel's ushers. And either of them are just as qualified to be standing up here, but stupidly Daniel chose me. For this I'm truly honoured, especially as it meant I didn't have to serve you lot drinks earlier. And it gives me the ability to get some redemption for the speech he did at my wedding. Now, I wanted to do the job of being best man justice, so I decided some research was needed. I didn't turn to books, I turned to the internet, as everyone does. And I set out to search for information on the responsibilities of the best man, along with some hints and tips of what to say. But as anyone will know, who's used the internet will know, it's very easy to get sidetracked, especially when the wife's out. Anyway, after being sidetracked for a few hours, I got back to my research. I ended up finding out some very interesting stuff on continental drift. Bear with me, it's going somewhere. Now, I know you didn't come here for a lecture on plate tectonics and geography, but it's very interesting. Apparently, the continents of Europe and America are moving towards each other at the rate of 5 centimetres a year, which is that much, or as Daniel would say, probably about that much. Now, this is very slow progress, and scientists have actually created a scale to measure things that move very slowly, and this is known as the Gower scale. And it's based on the time it has taken Daniel to make an honest woman of Penny. 17 years. After 17 years of courting, Daniel finally asked Penny to marry him in January this year. And after a few months later, here we are. One of the shortest engagements and quickest marriages I've personally known. So that's a long drawn out beginning, a short build up, and then a big event all over within a flash. Let's hope that doesn't mimic the wedding night hate.
A bit like your research, isn't it? A bit like your research.
Yeah. Now, it's not often the best man is equally qualified to talk about both the groom and the bride. And it's also a worrying situation when there's probably more embarrassing stories to tell about the bride than the groom. So I've really had to scrape the barrel. Penny, don't worry, we'll get to you later.
Thanks.
So where to start? Well, as always, I find with these sort of best man speeches and all the ones I've heard, the best place to start is finding words to describe Daniel. Naturally, a few words went through my mind. Sort of extrovert, well, very occasionally. Laid back, definitely. Yeah. Stylish, some people call it that. Vain, definitely. Dependable, for sure. But there is a word that summarises Daniel perfectly for me, and that word is metrosexual. Now, for those of you who don't know what a metrosexual is, I believe a dictionary definition would be useful, and this goes as follows. The typical metrosexual is a young man with money to spend, living in or within easy reach of the metropolis, because that's where all the best shops, fashion designers and hairdressers are. He is given to enhancing his personal appearance by fastidious grooming, beauty treatments and fashionable clothes, and has a refined sense of taste.
Oh, there you go.
He might be officially gay, straight or bisexual, but this is utterly immaterial, because he has clearly taken himself as his own love object. And pleasure is his sexual preference. So let's analyse this definition. Money to spend. Well, first of all, Daniel's got a reasonably well-paid job, and I think anyone that owns a car that has tyres worth £190 a corner definitely has money to spend.
You're old one.
It's a shame he doesn't spend it on his mate. So.
Do you like your free dinner, by the way?
Living within easy reach of the metropolis, check. Daniel is a daily commuter to London. Fashion and shopping, well, I'm not really up on this, but All Saints, Diesel, he's the only person I know who's spent £150 on a pair of jeans. And Calvin Klein. I don't think there's anyone here who hasn't seen the top of his designer pants. Hairdressers. Daniel can regularly be found in sort of Tony and Guy or Headmasters or something like that, paying £30, £40 on a massage, haircut and beer. I spend £5 on mine at the barber's, and I'm sure you can't tell the difference. Much. Fastidious grooming. Daniel officially has more grooming and beauty products than Penny, and I think Penny will confirm this.
Not after him.
I suppose on to the next points. He may be officially gay. Well, I'll just throw this one in for the count.
Who's the other guy?
That is Adam's hand, by the way.
But I don't need to hide it. So being straight, well, that's the cover story and the reason we're here. Bisexual, I was always a little suspicious why Daniel was so keen to study in Brighton. But ultimately, anyone who checks out Daniel's profile pictures on Facebook will see he has definitely taken himself as his own love object. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to erect the...
Penny took most of those pictures.
And I'm sure we'll put them up somewhere at the end. So what else can we say about Daniel? Well, I've always found him to be very particular and meticulous. As we all know, Daniel loves his white Golf GTI, and that, more than healthy, was in the early days of ownership anyway. On my stag do, back in 2009, we'd been paintballing all day. It was raining heavily, and we all got fairly muddy. As Dan had driven, he was taking us back to the hotel to clean up for the night's shenanigans. Chris, Blair and myself went to get in his car, and we were all promptly stopped by Daniel, who made us take all our trousers off and handed us bin liners before getting into the car.
Does this go back to the gay thing?
Well, we all did this quite quickly. But for the next few minutes, Daniel was at the rear of the car, carefully taking his muddy clothes off, folding them, placing them in bags, and back into the boot. Blair, Chris and I, calmly sitting in the back of the car, wondering what was going on, in the distance heard the roar of an engine, or the rev of an engine. At that moment, my father came careering up the rain-soaked muddy track in his 4x4, spraying Dan's pristine car, the interior of the boot, and Dan's new clean trousers with mud. I can't obviously repeat Dan's words at this point, but needless to say, he wasn't happier, and the rest of us were absolutely wetting ourselves. And I think we then spent the next half hour driving back to Leeds, just sitting in the back of the car going, good time. And that's, I must admit, that's one of my favourite stories. Now, hard-working. Daniel, I say often, is on his BlackBerry. Well, to be honest, he's nearly always on his BlackBerry, or one of the two phones. He quite often has conference calls at 1 AM and all these sort of things. And I think one of my, again, favourite anecdotes of this was when we were on Barry's stag do a few years ago, and we were canoeing up the River Wye. Now, Daniel was the only person in the group who managed to take his mobile phone with him in the boat and seemed to be on it quite regularly. And it was the point when Blair, well, I'm not actually sure whether it was Blair or Daniel, upset the motion of the boat and they capsized.
This is when you tipped us in,
yes.
wasn't it?
And all we saw was Daniel's hand holding his mobile phone. Now this one, I must admit, I haven't completely finished off, but I think, as many of you will know, Daniel is completely accident prone. And I don't mean in a serious way, but you can guarantee he's either always stubbed his toe or knocked his arm or his wrist or something like that. But he also sort of things tend to happen to him. So when we were in India for Rohit and Sheba's wedding, on the night before their wedding, Daniel awoke and basically looked like one ginormous mozzie bite. No one else in the group had been touched or affected except Daniel. Yet you would have thought they would have gone with someone with a bit more meat on them. Now the other thing Daniel likes is a night out. And for years now, Daniel has recounted to us all numerous stories of wild nights out and all-day benders. And I'm sure most of you can recall at least one story. Now, I'd always believed these stories and thought Dan was a hardcore drinker, especially following his uni years. But I must admit, in recent years, I've actually started to doubt how true this is. The first seeds of doubt were sown in my own stag do, where he disappeared rather early in the night's proceeding to go back to the hotel and watch Friday Night with Jonathan Ross. Then, at Rohit's stag do a couple of years ago, we have evidence of him falling asleep in the club.
They're freely available on Facebook if anyone wants it. It takes a lot of skill to stand up.
Only awaking every time that bottle tipped over. But to cap it all off, on the first night of his own stag do, he became so instantaneously drunk, not only could we not understand a word he was saying, but he had to be taken back to the hotel at 10:30 p.m. Now, we can forgive him for this, especially as he'd been playing the red car drinking game all the way up to Manchester. Where's Dan Cash? That was good fun, that was. There's a lot of red cars. If you start looking for red cars, there's a lot of them. However, what I can't forgive him for is the sight that greeted me when returning to the hotel room at around 2:30 a.m, 3 o'clock. Now, be ready. I was asked not to put this on Facebook. Now, bearing in mind the facilities in the Premier Inn aren't great, the only items available for the clean-up operation I had to undertake was a teacup and teaspoon. Thanks, mate. Also, my head had to sleep here because his body sprawled out over the double bed.
That's what best friends are for.
That's what best friends are for. Daniel also has a love and passion for football. Now, fortunately, I don't like football. So Dan has given up relaying stories to me about this save, this goal, that goal that went in. Thank God. But over the years, Daniel has played for school, college, university, Ash United, and I believe you even played for the county at one point. I might be wrong there. And therefore, I always thought he was pretty good. That was until a wedding message came from his ex-teammates at Ash United.
Oh, brilliant.
It says, Daniel was useless in all positions, but we hope Penny has more luck with him later. I'm not sure what that means. Joking aside, and as I mentioned earlier, I was honoured to be asked to be Daniel's best man. Dan has been a constant figure throughout my life. First days at school, sports days, holidays, birthdays, and even the first date with my now wife, Stacey. Nothing weird, I promise. And I hope that there will be many more adventures as he embarks on married life. I couldn't ask for a more dependable friend or someone that pushes me to strive forward and achieve my goals, mainly due to our renowned competitiveness, I suspect.
Yep.
Daniel, you are the Buzz Lightyear to my Woody. It didn't look so dodgy on paper. So, a word about Daniel's lovely bride then. Penny, you look absolutely beautiful today, and I think Daniel's face, which I got to look at, I suppose, as he saw you earlier today, is testament to this. I know Penny was happy for me to mention her in my speech, as long as I didn't go over the line, as her father is present. So, Mr. Hull, I either just ask you to step outside,
We'll tell you later.
It's all right. It's a bit of a joke because I wouldn't dare. Now, I've really known Penny since we were about 13. I can still remember Daniel's excitement as he told me that he had a girlfriend. Having given me a very brief description of what she looked like, he was keen to emphasise something along the lines of, "She makes model planes too." A hobby that both Daniel and I, as teenage boys, shared at the time. Now, this was quite sweet in a roundabout sort of way, but what most of you don't know about Penny and Daniel is that they still make model planes. If you ever hear them both referring to a quiet, romantic night in, it normally involves cracking open a fresh bottle of Revel plastic food, getting out a box of luxurious Airfix, and painting each other's fuselages. In the early days, all I knew about Penny was that she was a very intelligent girl, and that this was confirmed in later years by amazing GCSE results, college grades, and then by studying at Oxford. Now, as is my experience with all academically gifted people, they normally have some sort of deficiency by way of offsetting their brain power. In Penny's case, her deficiency is that she clearly has no taste in men. I mean, if you think about it, Penny, you had plenty of opportunity. Now, despite Penny's intellect, there is also a questionable school record. This wasn't tarnished because of smoking in the loos, truanting, swearing in class. It was much, much worse. The deputy head of the girl of the school was caught in the cloisters by the headmaster and called to his room for a stern talking to for canoodling or frolicking on the lockers with her now husband. Well, when I say canoodling, Penny still insists they were pulling each other's scarves. So Mr. Linnell could obviously sense this would escalate, and it clearly has. So what else can we say about Penny? Well, I think most people's first impressions of Penny is that she's relatively quiet, reserved, sensible person who's very considerate and thoughtful. However, the fantastic thing about Penny is once you scratch away at the surface, you find someone who's really quite strong-willed, adventurous, and a giggly, fun-loving girl, especially if she's had some wine. Right, I think I'd just like to say now that you two are both sort of some of my best friends, or my best friends basically, and it's been a real honour today to be part of your wedding, and I know I haven't done a huge amount, but it's really been great, and I'd like to thank you very much for that, and I look forward to the next 17 years at least. So, right, I think you've heard enough from me, but as I begin to wrap things up, and I think as you've mentioned already, there are a few people that couldn't be here today, and I know in particular Kitty and Alan would like me to pass on their regards. It gives me the greatest pleasure to invite you all to be upstanding and join me, whatever I did with my drink, there it is, thank you very much. To join me in toasting the bride and groom on what I'm sure will be a very long and happy marriage. To Penny and Daniel.
Penny and Daniel.
Thank you
very much.
Finally, I'd like to end this speech with a quote by the English essayist, poet, playwright and politician Joseph Anderson, which really struck a chord during my research. I didn't know who he was either. So. It is those marriages generally abound most with love and constancy that are preceded by long courtship.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Well done, Alan.
Right, go get drunk now.
Relax.